Okay, we're up to the beginning of Daf Pei Gimel Amid Aleph. A few lines into the page. Just to get to the Mishnah, just to finish up, it's going to be a little bit more of what we did last time. Just to remind ourselves, the Mishnah had said, we know that you're chayiv for oisev es benai when you shecht a mother and a child. So the Mishnah said, what if you do the following case? You shecht the grandmother animal, and then the granddaughter. Okay, so no isser yet. Then you shecht the mother in between. You're doing one ma'aseh shchita, but it's triggering two averis. Two sets of oisev es benai. How many sets of lashes do you get? Tanakama says one, because it's one ma'aseh avera. Sumcha says no, you get two. So the shaila is this machlokes between Sumchas and the Rabbanon isolated to this case because there's multiple animals? Or is Sumchas' shita bigger? And that is, throughout Kol HaTerakula, if a person does the Avera multiple times in one forgetting, maybe you get multiple lavim. So in one forgetting, if you eat two kazayas of chazer, maybe you should get two lavim, two lashes. So the question is Sumchas isolated to this case, or is it bigger? So the Gemara says one last attempt at a raya toshema. Ochal shnei gidin, mishtei yereichos, mishtei behemis, soifig shmoinim. Rav Yehuda Omer einoi soifig es arboim. The case is, we have to find the exact details. You sit down to a meal, you eat one gid anasha from one animal, and then afterwards you eat another gid anasha from a second animal. How many sets of lashes do you get? So the Tanakama says, well, you ate two gid anashas. So you get 80 lashes. Comes Rav Yehuda, he says, no, only one set. So the question is, what exactly is the machlek? What's the case and what's the machlekes? So says the Gemara, hey chidami, what's the case? If the case is, I'm warned not to eat gid anasha A, and then I eat gid anasha A, and then I wake up, I remember, so I can't do that. Then I'm warned again, don't eat gid anasha B, and I eat gid anasha B. So why would Rav Yehuda say you only get one lashes? Two different actions, two different forgettings, two different hasros. What's the machlekes? Says the Gemara, my time to do them arba misuloi. El pshita, it must be, it's this case. What's the case? In one forgetting, you ate two different gid anoshas. And the Tanakama is Sumchas, who says that you get 80 because Sumchas' shita is kol hatarakula. Because if not Sumchas, then what exactly is the case? Again, there's some sort of machlekes here. What's the machlekes? It must be, it's this kufa, where you did in one forgetting, you ate two gid anoshas, and the question is, are you punished because it's one forgetting, or it's two different averas that were done, so you get two separate lashes? It's the same thing. Why not? Why not? It's one different maisa that triggers two lavim. So over here, it's two separate lavim in one forgetting, but it's one maisa. One forgetting is one maisa. It's perceived that way. So it says the Gemara, elapshita bevasachas ubechata hasra. It must be mamish our case. And man Tanakama. Who's the Tanakama? Ilema Rabbanon pligalag sumchis mahasam de gufin muchlakim pacher Rabbanon hochlei kolshkin. It can't be the Rabbanon. They disagree with sumchis in our case. Elav sumchisi. It must be sumchis, because if it's not sumchis, then what exactly is the machlokes? The Gemara says very simple. The truth is, this is not at all related to what you thought. The case is not sumchis. The case is not where you ate two different gid anoshas in one forgetting and one has. It's very simple. The machlokes of Yehuda and the Rabbanon is as follows. What if I have a gid anosha that is less than a kazayas? Do I get lashes? Normally, in your program to think that to get lashes you need a kazayas. But over here, the entire gid anosha is less than a kazayas. So I ate the entire gid anosha. That's the machlokes. The machlokes of Yehuda and Rabbanon in this case, it's really two different maises with two different hasros. So why would Rav Yehuda say you only get one set of lashes? You should get two. The answer is because one of the gid anoshas is less than a kazayas. Rav Yehuda says it's less than a kazayas. You don't get lashes. The Rabbanon say the kazayas is only important when it's not the entire thing. If you ate the entire gid anosha, then it's choshev b'fnei atzmai, even though it's not a kazayas. So it's not related to our machlokes at all. Correct. Is it a berio or it's a kazayas? That's the question. The question is, do you go by kazayas? Do you go by kazayas, or do you say you ate the whole gid anosha? So this animal's gid anosha happens to be a half a kazayas, but you ate the whole thing. That's the shaila. Says the Gemara, Lo ilam b'zachar zeh. Udegar my time to Rav Yehuda, kikon the less be kazayas, the Tanya, ochlu ve'im by kazayas, chayiv. Rav Yehuda machi b'kazayas. The machlekes tanoim. Rav Yehuda shita is that you're not chayiv if it's less than a kazayas. That's the machlekes over here. It's unrelated to sumchas. That as long as you ate the whole thing, who cares whether it's a kazayas or not? Okay. New Mishnah. So I'm just saying this outside. Normally when you go to a butcher and you buy an animal to shecht, even if he sold the mother that day, You don't have to ask questions. He doesn't have to tell you, I sold the mother that day. Why? Why isn't it his achrayis as the mashkiach to tell you, don't shecht it on the same day because I just sold the baby, don't sell? The answer is because the average person that bought a cow was not shechting it that day. Cows were, you bought it in advance. But there were 4 times a year where Klal Yisrael has a lot of meals. And if you buy a cow and its baby on these days, if you buy a cow and the butcher sold the baby on the same day, the butcher has to tell you, hey, do not shecht it hayom. Because those 4 days were such popular meal days in Klal Yisrael that the assumption is that when they bought the animal, they were eating it that day. What were the 4 days a year? The 4 times a year that if a butcher sells an animal, its child or its parent, and then sells the second animal, they have to tell the buyer, hey, I sold it already today. Mistama, you're both shechting it today, you gotta wait. Because these 4 times a year, everyone's eating. What are those 4 times a year? What are the 4 times? Erev Yom Tov Achron Shel Chag. Erev Simchas Torah. Simchas Torah is a big meals, a big simcha. So that was a big, that was a day. It was Erev Simchas Torah. So Hishana Rabbi, I guess. Erev Yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach, Erev Pesach. Erev Atzeres, Erev Shavuos. And Erev Rosh Hashanah. Those were the 4 times a year that there were big meals. Kediv Rabbi Yossi Aglili added one more. What's another time where there's a big mitzvah to eat? Erev Yom Kippur. Erev Yom Kippur, that's mamash a mitzvah to eat, Erev Yom Kippur. Av Erev Yom Kippur, big Galil. In Galil, they would have big meals in Erev Yom Kippur. Rav Yehuda. Now, so that means that those 4 times a year, let's pick Erev Shavuos. It's one of the 4 times a year. So Menashe is the butcher. He sold the mother today to Ruvain. I show up and I buy the baby. He's mechuyev to tell me, hey, I sold the mother hayom, and I'm selling you the baby hayom, do not shecht it because I already sold the mother. What?
The next day he's going to do it.
It's Erev Shavuos. There's no next day. Or the next day is Shavuos taka. So fine, shecht it on Shavuos. That's fine. It's Isser if it's 24 hours. As we'll see, it has to be a halachic yom. The next day you could shecht it. Oisei ves b'nai is an Isser hayom. There's no.
No, if he shechts the next day, it could be also ves b'nai also.
How? The other person shechted at hayom. You have to presume those 4 days, though they're shechting at hayom. Those are 4 days of parties. Now, what if Menashe is the butcher? It's Erev Shavuos. I show up. I buy the baby. He sold the mother 3 days ago. So then that's not a problem because it's not hayom. Meaning, we don't say maybe the buyer bought it 3 days ago but plans on butchering it today. No, it's so it says the Mishnah. I'm sorry. However, there is one occasion in the Jewish calendar where even if people buy the mother and the child on separate days, it's a problem. And what is that? You're coming in and you say, I'm buying a cow. And they say, why? You say, oh, my son's getting married next week. Okay. The other side comes in, I'm buying a cow. They give the baby. Why? Because my daughter's getting married next week. That's a problem. They're not buying it hayom. It says, yeah, but they're buying it for the chasana. And the chasana, they're both going to shecht it on the same day. It's pretty obvious. Says the Gemara, Ma'idar Yehuda, b'meicher se'em lechasan. If the case is where you sold the mother cow to the groom, Ves habas lakala, and the daughter to the bride, I guess they didn't do flops. They each one prepared half the meal. So that's a problem. That you have to tell them. Even though they're not buying it on the same day, you know why they're buying it. They're buying it for the chasana, and the chasana is taking place, and therefore that's an issue. Now, another halacha. Let me just say this outside, and we'll see it inside. The halacha is like this. I'm a butcher. Yeah, you actually have this, by the way. I'm sure your business maybe not as much. In other businesses, you have this. I'm a butcher. I'm selling. $100 gets you. I have a live animal. $100 gets you a piece of the animal. Now, I'm doing this because I'm thinking I'm going to sell the whole animal and make a lot of money. Turns out I only got 2 buyers. So I'm stuck. So what do I want to do? I want to cancel, right? I want to butcher an animal just for 2 buyers. That's insane. So the halacha is, you gave me cash. You gave me $100. Now you never did mice. You never did a kinyan. You never did mashicha, but you gave me cash. The halacha is like this. Throughout the year, I could return the cash to you. Except for these 4 times a year. These 4 times a year, no good. So if Erev Rosh Hashanah you come and you say, $100, I want the leg of the living cow. That leg is mine. And that's all I sell. I'm obligated to shech the cow and take the loss. And I'll have to deal with, there was no refrigeration, but I had to deal. I can't give the money back. So the question the Gemara is going to deal with is why are those 4 times a year different than the rest of the year? Okay, we'll deal with it. Now the case is I gave cash, but I didn't do a Maisa Kinyan. If you did a Maisa Kinyan and you paid cash, you can't renege. It's Mamash Yur's L'Kuli Al Mulchal Days. The case is where you gave cash. Says the Mishnah, during these 4 times a year, we force the butcher to shech the animal against his will. Even if he sold only 1 or 2 shares in the animal, he has to butcher it. Afilu shar shel 1,000 dinarim, even if the ox is worth $1,000, ve'ein lokeach dinar, and the guy only bought 1 share worth $1, you have to shech the entire animal for that $1. Now, by the way, that also means, for the record, again, Menashe, I'm the butcher. Menashe gives me $100. I have to shech this entire cow, even though the only buyer is Menashe. Now, by the way, that could also hurt you. Because let's say, before I shecht it, the animal gets struck by lightning and dies. Well, you lost your money. Meaning, we're doing it that it's yours. The $100 makes it that a part of this animal is yours. Now, that usually is to help you, because that means I can't renege and I have to shecht it. But it also means that if the animal gets hit by a truck, you lost your money. Okay. Therefore, says the Mishnah, but this halacha that you force the butcher to shecht, even though he only sold 1 or 2 shares, that's only true during those 4 times a year. The rest of the year, Enakin, and the rest of the year, he could renege. The Gemara will explain what is the significance of these 4 times a year. Why would it be a difference? Yeah, but he has to give the money back. Yeah, I'm saying he could renege. That's the point. Now, okay. One halacha, we said those, meaning therefore, if the animal were to get struck by lightning, he doesn't lose out because it's not his yet. If I could renege, that means it's not Menashe's yet. So if it gets struck by lightning, that's my loss. Now, the halacha is Tana. Yeah. Tana. Now, one quick halacha. These 4 times a year, I'm the butcher, so I'm the mashgiach. So we said 4 times a year, if you sold the mother and the child on the same day, you have to tell the second buyer, hey, don't shecht it. Says the Gemara, Im loy haydiah haylech v'sheichev einenimna. It's on the seller, it's on the butcher to tell you. Meaning, you as the buyer are not achrai to ask the butcher, did you sell a mother today? You don't have to be that frum. The halacha is, it's an achrayus of the seller. The buyer is not obligated to ask questions of, was the mother sold today? No. If the seller tells you good, and if not, meaning if the seller tells you it's a problem, and if not, then just go butcher away. You don't have to, you don't have to investigate it. It's if the butcher sold the mother that day, he has to tell the second buyer, I sold the mother when I'm selling you the baby. But the buyer is not obligated to ask questions. It's not okay. We don't look for problems. Now, one last halacha about this. We said, what's the one time where it's a problem, even if it's not sold on the same day for a chasana? So we said the example was, you sold the mother cow to the chasan side, and you sold the baby cow to the kala side. Just a question. Why do you sell the mother to the chasan and the baby to the kala? Why not vice versa? So you say, I don't know. So says the Gemara, the answer is the Gemara is telling you a side chiddush, and that is, it was a bigger, they put in more effort into the chasan's simcha side than the kala side. The kala is very happy to get married. The actual meal, that was like the chasan's thing. So therefore, the mother was usually sold to the chasan and the baby to the kala because the chasan side was like more interested in steak. Okay. Now here's the question. I'll say this outside, we'll see this inside. We said this 4 times a year, where if the buyer gives $100 to the butcher and buys a chelik of the animal, the butcher cannot renege. 4 times a year. The rest of the year he could, 4 times a year he can't. So the question is, I don't understand, was there a kinyan done? Those 4 times a year, yeah? Those 4 times a year. Was a kinyan done? Because if a kinyan is not done, if you just give cash, mos is einoi koines. Mos, money, is not koine. If I give you something money, it's not koine midrabanan. Again, maybe you shouldn't renege, it's not a good thing to renege, but technically, you have to do a kinyan. So over here, did you do a kinyan on this animal that's forcing you to only, to not be able to renege those 4 times a year? It says the Gemara, he didn't do a kinyan. The case is where you did a kinyan. Let me ask you a question. So what's the chiddush then? I gave cash, I did a kinyan on the animal, so you tell me I can't renege. Of course you can't renege. That's mamish business 101. Says Gemara, Yihachi in Maseifa, Al Vashar Yimois Hashana Einay Kain, Vika Meis Meis L'Maycha Mashach. The question is also, not only is it pashut, the rest of the year you could renege. If you're talking about a case where you gave cash and did a kinyan, why are you allowed to renege the rest of the year?
What about a deposit?
A deposit is not enough. That's the point. We also have to do a kinyan as well, in addition to deposit. So Amar Shmuel Bar Yitzchak La'olam Shaloi Mashach. The case, in other words, we're bothered by the following question: what exactly is the case, and why is it different those 4 times a year and the rest of the year? So the Gemara says, I'll tell you the case. The case is let's say Mr. Lorch, let's say, is the butcher. I give him cash, and I didn't do a kinyan, because if I did a kinyan, then there's no difference between the rest of the year and those 4 times a year. If you did a kinyan, you did a kinyan. The case is I gave cash, and my father made a kinyan for me. This is a concept called mezaken le'edei acher. The halacha is, am I able to do a kinyan for you without your knowledge? So the rule is, what's the rule? Zachin la'adam shaloi b'fanav ve'in chavin la'adam shaloi b'fanav. The answer is, you have to ask yourself, does he really want this? If he really wants this, yes. If he doesn't want this, no. The halacha is, those 4 times a year, you could presume the average person wants to have a cow. So another person could do a kinyan on his behalf. The rest of the year, lav dafka. So the case is, the distinction between those 4 times a year and the rest of the year is, the case is you gave cash, or forget about cash. Let's say there was no cash. Someone did a kinyan on your behalf. So during those 4 times a year where everyone needs an animal, that's gavaldik. You'd be very happy that someone took care of that for you. The rest of the year, lav dafka. That's a chayiv. Says the Gemara, the case is where you did not actually do a kinyan. The case is the butcher had someone else do a kinyan for you without your knowledge. On these 4 times a year, it's a chus. The rest of the year, it's a chayiv. All of a sudden, if I go over to Menashe and I say, hey, I bought a car for you, you're like, what do you mean? I said, yeah, I did a kinyan on a car for you. And you say, how much do I owe? I said, $30,000. Is that a chus for you? You're not so happy about that. Those 4 times a year, everybody wants a cow. The rest of the year, lav dafka. That's the first pshat. The second pshat is as follows. The Gemara says the second pshat is as follows. The truth is, the cases where you gave cash, and this is a good thing to know, is cash koine min haTorah? Yes. Midaraisa, cash is king. It's Chazal who instituted that you need to do a kinyan as well. Those 4 times a year, Chazal said, we're not going to be so strict. Those 4 times a year, it's so important if you have a cow, cash is king. Kesef is kaina. The reason why it's not kaina midrabanan, why is a Chazal normally said you have to do a kinyan? I'll tell you, very simple. Very, very simple case. It's called Shlei Yisafu Chitecha Ba'aliyah. Very simple case. You're selling, my father is selling a bike. I give him $100. He says, you want to pick it up, Kenya? You want to pick it up? I say, I'll get it next week. Okay. But I gave cash. So technically, min haTorah, it's mine. A fire breaks out in his warehouse. You know whose bike he's not going to run after? Mine. He's going to worry about his stuff. He's not going to worry about mine. So because I was already kind of min haTorah, that means it's mine, so then he won't protect me. Chazal said you have to do a kinyan as well. So it's a derabana and takana that you have to do a kinyan in addition to kesef. No, because once I do a kinyan, I take it. Mashiach means I take it. Mashiach means I take the bike. The point is, if you just pay cash for something, but you leave it in someone else's property, it leaves you vulnerable. These 4 times a year, Chazal said we're going to accept kesef being koine deraisa mamish, and therefore the butcher cannot renege. Rav Elazar, Rabbi Yochanan, these 4 times a year, Chazal just accepted the biblical concept. Dam Rav Yochanan, Dvar Torah, Mois Koine. So Rav Yochanan said, biblically, cash is king and kesef is koine. Umatam Amr Mashiach koine. So why does the Chazal institute you have to Mashiach to take the item? Because we're afraid that if a fire breaks out in his attic, he's not going to protect your items because he already paid for them. And they're already yours. And therefore, in order to protect you, they made you do Mashiach as well. Okay. New Mishnah. This will take us to the end of the parak. Mishnah says like this. The Mishnah says, we know that Oisev es Benai applies in one day. The question is this a Jewish day or a Gayish day? Jewish days are night and then day. Gayish day is a day that night. So the question is, which day is this? Oh, see, my father's asking a good question. Why would I think it's Gaisha Day? So I'll say all this outside. The reason being is because for Karbonis, the Mishnah says, Yom Echad Omer B'Osav Esbeno, Hayom Holech Achar Alayla. The day regarding Osav Esbeno is night and then day, a classic Jewish day. Azu Darish Rav Shimon ben Zoma. The source of this is from a Joshua Rav Shimon ben Zoma. Namar B'Maisa Bereishis Yom Echad. It says the word Yom Echad by the 7 days of creation. V'Namar B'Osav Esbeno Yom Echad, and it says the same lashon by Osav Esbeno. Why is that? Ma Yom Echad Omer B'Maisa Bereishis Hayom Hachar Alayla. Just like by Maisa Bereishis, the beginning of the world, it was night and then day. Right? Vayi Erev Vayi Boiker Yom Echad. Af Yom Echad Omer Osav Esbeno Hayom Holech Achar Alayla. Good. So the Gemara asked the question my father mentioned, which is, you have a big chiddush of the Mishnah to tell me that Osav Esbeno is night and day. All Jewish halachas is night and day. Says the Gemara, Tan Rabban, Azar Dush Shimon Zoma, if you should call it Inu Kula and Medabel Kachim. So Shimon Zoma anticipated this, and he said, because Osav Esbeno is juxtaposed in the Torah, it's right after Karbanos. Karbanos is day then night. Right? You might think that this is like Karbanos. Nemar Kan Yom Echad. Go to the next page. Now, just one added drasha to finish up the parak. So it says Yom Echad. Yom Echad is to tell me that it's night and then day. Rabbi has a different shot of Yom Echad. In the previous Mishnah, we said that there are 4 times a year that you have to tell him that I sold. The source of this, Rabbi says, is Yom Echad. Yom Echad means Yom HaMiyuchid Ton Cruz. There are certain days. Yom Echad doesn't just mean day one. It means the special day. There are certain special days in the Jewish calendar where the butcher is achroi to publicize that I sold the mother. And which days? Mekan Amru. This is the source from Chazal. Arba Prakam Bashana. Hamaycha b'mehemer atzarech le'adiyah. That 4 times a year you have to hadiyah. Hajj and Allah. Oisai v'aspenai. Beautiful. New Mishnah, new topic. Done about 5 minutes, not too complicated. This is the mitzvah of Kisei Hadam. Kisei Hadam means, it's a mitzvah min Torah. That when you shecht dafka, a bird, or a chaya, you have to cover the blood. You do not have to cover it by a behema. By birds and chayas, you have to cover the blood. Zok the Mishnah, Kisei Adam Noig, the mitzvah Kisei Adam applies be'aretz, b'chutz la'aretz, applies in Eretz Yisrael, it applies in chutz la'aretz, b'fnei habayis, shaloi b'fnei habayis, when there was a Beis HaMikdash, after the Churban, b'chulin avaloi b'mikdashin, but it does not apply to karbanos. Now, by the way, pause. Which karbanos would it apply to? It doesn't apply to behemoths, because Kisei Adam doesn't apply to behemoths. There are no chayas that are karbanos. The only potential karban that it could apply to are the bird karbanos. A chata sa'of and an ola sa'of. And the Mishnah is saying there is no kisei adam. Let me ask you a question. Why not? Why is there no kisei adam by chata sa'of and ola sa'of? That's what the Gemara is going to deal with. Okay. B'noig b'chai ba'oif, and it applies to chayis and oifis. B'mizumin and b'she'em mizumin, whether they're house pets, whether you just acquire them from hefker. K'shluch hakan does not apply if you own the nest. Kisei adam applies even if you own the animal. Okay? B'noig b'koi, and it applies to a koi, b'nishu suffix, because our Mishnah believes that a koi is a suffix behema suffix chaya, so suffix deraisa, you have to cover the blood. Ve'in sheich the noisa b'yomtiv, you're not allowed to shecht a koi on yomtiv. The reason being is because kisei adam on yomtiv is allowed. Kisei adam by definition is taking dirt. Dirt is muksa. It's allowed on yomtiv if it's a mitzvah. Koi, because it's a suffix, it will cause you to have to cover it with dirt, which is taking muksa potentially when it's not necessary. And therefore we'd rather you avoid this situation and not shech the koi on Yom Tiv. V'im shachtu ein mechasen es damai. And if you shechted it, we do not allow you to do muksa. So kisei dam. Karbanos, it does not apply to a carbon.
So bird, let's say it's going to
No, mitzvah is not a carbon. It's chata sa'if and oila sa'if. Those are the 2 karbanos. Mitzvah birds are done outside of the Beis HaMikdash. It's not chata sa'if and oila sa'if, yeah. There is no kisei adam. Now the Gemara wants to know why not. Zak the Gemara, Mukdashin my time aloi. Why is there no kisei adam by a carbon? Se'ilim mishum de Rav Zera. Let me say it outside. Rav Zera says very simple, because kisei adam, the way it works is you don't have to just cover on top. You have to put the dirt under it, and then you shecht on top of dirt. Let me ask you a question: how are you going to do that? The chata sa'if or oila sa'if was on the mizbeach. It wasn't on the floor, it was on the Mizbeach. So you're going to put dirt on the Mizbeach. You can't put dirt on the Mizbeach. Why? Because if you're putting dirt on the Mizbeach to be a part of the Mizbeach, you're now making the dimensions of the Mizbeach bigger than David HaMelech was told by the Navi. You're not allowed to do that. If you're putting the dirt on the Mizbeach for Kisei Adam, it's a chatzitza. The blood has to go on the Mizbeach. In other words, the blood has to go on the Mizbeach. You can't put dirt there because then it would be a chatzitza. So maybe that's why there's no blood, there's no Kisei Adam, because you can't put the dirt under it. That's attempt number one. The problem the Gemara is going to point out. So still do Kisei Adam even if you can't put dirt under it. So you can't do the mitzvah b'shleimus. You're supposed to put dirt under and dirt on top.
But if you don't do it before, underneath it, it's not kisur done.
No, you're still doing half the mitzvah. Right? You come to a situation where you didn't put dirt under it. So it's fafalin. It's not fafalin. Put dirt on top. That's the Gemara's point. The Gemara is going to address that. The Gemara says, you have to put dirt under and dirt on top. Now, Ba'afar means you put the blood in the dirt, meaning there's dirt below and dirt above. Now, maybe the reason why you don't do Kisei Adam by the karbanos is because you can't put dirt under it. Why can't I put dirt under it? Because how are you practically supposed to do it? If you put dirt there and leave it there long term, the problem is you're making the dimensions of the Mizbeach bigger than that's ordained. The pasuk says every dimension of the Mizbeach HaMikdash was given over to Shlomo HaMelech by a Navi. So you can't make it bigger. So you're going to say, okay, I'll put the dirt there and then I'll clean it off. Loy levatle have a chatzitza. It's a chatzitza. In other words, you can't put the dirt there. So the reason why there's no Kisei Adam by karbanos is because practically you can't do it. Because you can't put dirt under it. So says the Gemara, okay, you can't put dirt under it. It's a chatzitza. So put dirt on top of it. Says the Gemara, at least do what you can. Now where do I see a concept in Mishnayos that if I can't put dirt under and I could put dirt on top, it's still Yoitz Zayin? Where do I find such a thing? Lavakisa Milei Tanya, Rabbi Yonasan ben Yosef Oimer, Shochat Chaya v'acher kach Shochat Behema. If you shech the Chaya first, okay, then you shech the Behema on top of it. So the blood is covered by the Behema's blood. So the halacha is Potem Elchas, you can't do Kisei Adam because it's already covered. It's covered by Behema blood, so there's no Kisei Adam to do. But Shochat Behema v'acher B'Chaya, you shech the Behema first, yeah. Then you do the Chaya blood on top. So now you can't cover under the Chaya blood because under the Chaya blood is Behema blood. You know what you could do? You cover it on top. What do you see? Even though you can't do Kisei Adam under, you could do Kisei Adam on top. Says the Gemara, so you see you could do Kisei Adam on top. So what's the difference? Why is it that by a carbon I can't put the Kisei Adam on top because I can't put dirt under it? But in this case, the standard animal, if there's blood under it, so I can't do Kisei Adam under it, I could still do Kisei Adam on top. So what's the difference? So the Gemara says, Kidder Rav Zera, Dam Rav Zera, Kol Arei, Bila Makeves, V'shein Rav Bila, Ein Bila Makeves. The answer is, it's worse when you can't do it. Meaning, because by a carbon I can't put dirt under it, that makes it ma'akiv. The average animal where I could put dirt under it, even if I don't put dirt under it, it's fine, yaitza. So therefore, if I were to ask you a question, is it essential to put dirt under the blood for Kisei Adam? It's definitely a mitzvah, but is it essential? Is it ma'akiv? The answer is, it depends. If you could put dirt under it and you forget to, fine. If you can't put dirt under it, it's a problem. Now says the Gemara, okay, I get it. So let's just finish up. 2 more minutes. Here's the question. Why is there no Kisei Adam by a carbon? Mishnah says no, but Kisei Adam by a carbon. Why not? So you say, because you can't put dirt under it. Okay. Here's what you can do. Sprinkle the blood, take a knife, scrape it off, then put dirt, put it on the dirt, and then cover it. Scrape it off. Oh, yes. So says the Gemara, so let him scrape the blood off the Mizbeach, then do Kisei Adam. Where do we find? So my father asked, where do we find such a concept? Well, I'll tell you why. Dam hanitas. Let's say the blood splatters somewhere, so you do Kisei Adam wherever it splatters. Sha'ala sakin. You know what the halacha is? You have to take the knife, the congealed blood on the knife, and do Kisei Adam. How do you do that? You scrape it off. That's the only way to do it. So to be, you scrape it off. Over there you're scraping it off. So the question is, why could I not do Kisei Adam on the Mizbeach, scrape it off the Mizbeach, and then do Kisei Adam? So the Gemara will end with this. The Gemara says, you're right. Karbanos Yitaka have to do Kisei Adam. I thought the Mishnah says not. The Mishnah is talking about Kodshei Bedek Habayis. Kodshei bedek habayis is where it's not a carbon, but it's an animal that belongs to the Beis Hamikdash. So let's say you have an animal that belongs to the Beis Hamikdash that for whatever reason gets shechted. I don't know why it gets shechted, but it gets shechted. The halach is there's no kisei adam. Why not? Because that shechita is not mater achila. By karbanos, you have to do kisei adam because the chatas ha'oif is eaten by the kehanim. The case of the Mishnah where there is no kisei adam by a carbon, by mukdashin, is not karbanos. It's kodshei bedek habayis, which means animals that are holy, but for financial holiness. You're not allowed to eat those. So if you shecht it, there's no kisei adam because you can't. There's no heter achila. But taka karbonos, there is kisei adam. Just finish up. I kodshei mizbeach hachanami hachamay eskinon bekodshei bedek habayis. All right, we'll stop here and we'll continue some later today. I'm going to record the daf Bez Hashem. I'll send it out soon. Hold on one second.